Hello and welcome to this edition of Whether or Not. We have some exciting fall updates for you, including the fall foliage updates for the state, as well as what's been happening climate-wise around our own neck of the woods. And then later, Jacob has a feature on how the weather affects our Nittany Lions during football games. All that and more, Whether or Not starts right now. Hello, welcome to this edition of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Bree Guy.
And I'm your forecaster, Matt Hoenig.
So Matt, this weekend is not looking too good. We're going to see any clearing? Are we going to have any salvageable days?
Thankfully, Bree, we will, but we'll have to wait until Sunday to get into that clearing. It's been a pretty unsettled week, and the unsettled weather is going to continue into at least Friday and the first half of Saturday. After that, though, we'll start to clear out.
Okay, at least we'll have Sunday and the rest of the week.
It won't be a total loss.
Okay, that's good. And we'll have more on that later, though. But first, we have nature in the news. The arts are no stranger to current events and issues around the world. Currently, the effects of climate change are having major impacts, aiding in the increasing amount in refugees each year. In Pittsburgh, a group comprised of many different people in multiple ethnicities called Pittsburgh's Afro-Yaqui Music Collective have incorporated this issue into their music, mixing worldly indigenous music with jazz, hip-hop, and funk. Recently, the group created a new 50-minute opera called Mirror Butterfly, Migrant Liberation Suite, which tells the tale of three warrior sisters fighting to save the planet. The hope for the opera is to spread knowledge about climate change and how it is currently affecting the environment and the people in it.
It's late October, and for one area of the country, it's still tornado season. Well, not quite. According to the National Weather Service, a tornado was confirmed in the little town of Woods Hole, Massachusetts on Cape Cod Monday morning. The tornado began as a waterspout, which is simply a tornado over a body of water, then briefly came on shore. Eyewitness reports at the Woods Hole Golf Club reported chairs being thrown around the facility by the strong winds. Thankfully, there were no major injuries or major structural damage. It is the seventh tornado to occur in Massachusetts this year, the fourth most since 1950. It has been an active tornado season in the Northeast as a whole. The 6 New England states have seen 20 tornadoes in 2018. Compare that to a typical state for tornadoes like Oklahoma. They've only seen 22 tornadoes in 2018.
On October 23rd, one of the 2 indigenous tribal faith leaders and a water protector of the Wolf Clan of Seneca Nation arrived in Pittsburgh to lead a protest and water ceremony to protect the 3 rivers against fracking destruction. The rally took place just as a large fracking convention took place in the city, and at least 15 local and national environmental groups took up theoretical arms against the ever-increasing plans to expand the oil and gas industry in the state. Rally attenders brought small containers of water from the rivers that were near their homes to be blessed by one of the tribal members. As the rally marched through downtown Pittsburgh, ultimately stopping at the convention center in which the fracking convention took place, the crowd was led by tribal members singing a tribal water song with lyrics, "Water, we love you, we thank you, we respect you."
Well, after an unsettled midweek, changes are coming and it'll eventually turn drier later this weekend. A bit of a break in terms of the active weather, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, looking ahead to your Friday forecast, a system that did impact us during the middle of the week, starting to push off the coast. Still a few leftover showers, though, primarily in eastern Pennsylvania, but a few still could impact the State College area, especially during the morning and early afternoon hours of Friday. Then overnight Friday, another system starts to ride up the coast, and by Saturday afternoon, it will move up into New England. So early Saturday, a few showers, definitely likely, especially from State College and points east. Then eventually skies begin to clear from west to east during the day on Saturday. Then this area of high pressure to our south and west starts to move its way over the northeast, and that will bring with it the return of sunshine come Sunday. So not a total washout this weekend. If anything, skies improving as we head throughout the weekend. So recapping the Friday forecast, a few scattered showers during the day on Friday, primarily to the east, and temperatures still pretty mild, up near the 60-degree mark in many places. Friday night, a few early showers here in State College, but then as that system approaches from the south, a few more showers could ride up into our region, and that'll last into the early part of Saturday. And once that system moves off to our north and east, conditions will turn much cooler, so only getting into the middle 40s Saturday afternoon, and again, skies generally clearing from west to east as we head later into Saturday. By Sunday, the return of sunshine, just a few scattered fair weather clouds, but otherwise a really nice day, and temperatures recovering a bit more seasonable for this time of year into the middle 50s. So overall, not a total loss on this weekend. Now, there's no Penn State home football game this weekend, but don't you worry, Jacob Morse has a feature coming up on how the weather impacts football players.
Penn State football has a rich tradition of excellence, with their recent history of winning the Big Ten championship in 2016 and reasserting themselves as one of the top programs in the country, to their past accomplishments while under head coach Joe Paterno. The Penn State football program undoubtedly has a storied history. But what does it take to achieve Coach Franklin's championship standard on a week-by-week basis? And how does the weather play a role in the team's preparations so that they can go 1-0 each week? I sat down with one of the assistant athletic trainers for Penn State football, Tessa Johns, to see if the weather had any impact on the way that the players practiced and prepared for each game.
We start looking at the weather a week in advance. We actually have a nice gentleman who sends us a detailed weather report weekly, and then kind of sends it again Thursday and then day of game. That helps us a lot in preparation, and also helps our equipment managers to know whether some of their spikes are interchangeable, so we can get the longer spikes and stuff like that. But that it definitely plays a factor. We try not to tell the guys like, hey, it's going to be hot wherever we're going, because it can become a mind thing as well. So we try to keep that neutral, but we definitely will push fluids a little more, keep it on their minds. If you know, it's 60 here, but we're flying to like bowl time, right? It's winter and 30 here, and if we fly to Florida, it might be 70, 80 there. So there's definitely a factor in that. So hot weather, there's obviously a lot of heat, and you have to worry about heat illness. So hydration is key. I mean, we preach to the guys all the time about hydration. You know, it starts 48 hours out of an activity. So during camp in August, when it's the hottest, like every day is 48 hours out of a hard activity. So, you know, extra salting their food, staying on top of things like that, just getting as much electrolytes as they can. And then the rainy weather forces us to go into our indoor facility, Haluba, a lot, which a lot of times the guys have to change their cleats because the different type of turf feeling. An artificial turf can be harder on them than the grass, so that can pose a problem. But luckily, our turf gets tested yearly for, you know, making sure the surface is just as it was when it was first put in. So, and then the rain, you know, our guys will bring out a bucket a lot of times and like dip the ball in it and do wet ball work if it isn't raining. That's a huge thing for wide receivers. So sometimes that turns into more of a run game. And with run game means our O-line and D-line are going to be hitting a lot harder or protecting a lot longer. So that can pose issues maybe with some head stuff, but not necessarily. And then the rain also, in my standpoint, you know, the guys are always having to get retaped because the adhesive tape is getting loose. So that kind of can be an issue. This time of year, you're late into the season, you're starting to play your heavy hitting teams. That can produce more injuries, and it's also getting colder now. So having to keep the guys warm, keep them going, and a lot of times when it's cold, they forget to drink. So hydration can actually be an issue in the cold weather as well. The colder they are, the tighter they're gonna get. So if they're standing around in the cold and then go to run a quick sprint, like that could definitely pose an issue, where if they're out in the warm and they go quickly, their body temperature is still a little warmer, so that could be the difference there.
With the football season throughout the fall and into the winter months, some crazy weather can happen during games. I asked Tessa what's been the worst weather for a Penn State football game that she can remember.
I remember when I was a student, there was a spring game that we had Snow, rain, sunshine, and hail. So that was kind of like really interesting. You know, you started the game in cold gear, and by the end of the game, they were so hot they were like trying to cut sleeves off. But worst conditions, maybe Michigan State last year. Just that 3-hour rain delay was really hard as far as preparation goes, because 3 hours for a football player, that's a long time to not eat. So, you know, we always have food and snacks for them, but you had to get them re-warmed up and had to get them food in the locker room, and there was just so much extra that had to be done, and it was away, so we had to make sure we had enough tape to re-tape everyone. And then the field conditions, luckily we came out of that game pretty clean, but the field conditions were, I mean, you couldn't even run without falling or walk without falling, so that definitely could have been a bad issue.
As you can see, the weather plays a big role in the way that Penn State football players prepare for each game to reduce injury and to keep the fans that come out to Beaver Stadium each fall happy with winning football. For Weather or Not, I'm Jacob Morse.
Well, after a very nice break in this unsettled pattern, more active weather will start to move in later next week, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, recapping your weekend. Unfortunately, the chances for showers do linger into Friday. More numerous showers Friday night with a more potent system coming up from the south, and that'll last into the first part of Saturday. And much cooler during the day on Saturday as well. Temperatures only into the middle 40s, so quite a bit below average for this time of year. Our average highs are in the mid 50s, and we'll be back there come Sunday with more in the way of sunshine and just a few scattered clouds. But your Sunday really looking pretty nice, so the weekend generally improving as we head further into it. Come next week, though, unfortunately, the nice weather doesn't really stick around. For your Monday, it will stay decent with more cloud cover, but still some peaks of sunshine. Temperatures into the middle 50s once again, but then we start to warm up into the beginning and middle parts of next week, back into the low and middle 60s come midweek, but unfortunately with it, a new system arrives, and that'll bring a more steady rain to the region. We have a really tough time clearing out from that rain come Thursday and Friday with lots of clouds and a few shower chances still sticking around. So unfortunately, not the nice extended forecast I've had to offer.
So Matt, it's going to be rainy, but temperatures will be on the rise, so I can get away with just wearing my sweater next week, right?
Yeah, certainly a good idea next week to put away any winter clothing you might have had. It's been pretty chilly lately.
No, like I brought out my long, like furry parka, and I only do that when snow's arriving, but like it was so cold this week, so I had to.
Yeah, certainly no snow in the extended forecast, thankfully.
Okay.
Temperatures above average into the 50s and 60s. Good idea to break out maybe a few light jackets or sweaters for this week.
Okay,
Certainly
good.
nothing in terms of big cold coming our way.
Okay, good. But just don't forget the umbrella, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
With those showers around, it'll be wet at times.
Yeah, and speaking of showers and wetness, earlier in the show, we asked you how much rain fell at this past week's Penn State football game at Beaver Stadium. Was it A, 2.1 inches, B, 1.0 inches, C, 0.73 inches, or D, 0.56 inches? If you guessed C, as it was highlighted, you are correct. The weather for last week's football game against Iowa State was less than friendly for football fans. The rain persisted for most of the morning, washing out the tailgates and drenching the first half of the game. The record rainfall for the day is 1.60 inches, set in 1981, so nowhere near the record, but still a wet event to attend.
Some other weather facts for the day include a cool high temperature of only 45 degrees. Despite the cold and rainy game, Penn State came out with the win. There are only 2 home games left in the regular season, so hopefully Mother Nature does not throw any more interferences our way. Bree, I personally didn't go to the game.
No, it was a wet game. It was muddy. The tailgating fields were just like crazy.
Yeah, it was not a game that I think a lot of people wanted to be at, but certainly a great turnout and a nice win.
Thank God we won, though.
Absolutely.
But that's all we have for you today. Thank you for joining us on Whether or Not. Again, I'm your host, Bree Guy.
And I'm your forecaster, Matt Hoenig.
Have a good weekend, everyone.